In a world where noise defines power, there exists a kind of strength that never raises its voice. The phantom sentinel walks through the smoke of forgotten wars, unseen, unheard, yet felt by every soul that still dares to stand. He is not a ghost in the supernatural sense, but a presence born of endurance, forged in silence, and tempered by the unrelenting rhythm of time. They say he was once like any soldier, flesh, heartbeat, and breath. But when the world turned its back on duty, he chose to stay behind, watching, learning, enduring. Every dawn he rises before the sun, not to be seen, not to be celebrated, but to ensure the light returns. He moves with the patience of mountains. His footsteps make no sound, yet they echo across history. Somewhere deep inside each of us, that same sentinel waits, the version of ourselves that refuses to yield, even when no one notices. There's data to prove that the unseen effort matters more than the grand moment of recognition. Studies show that 80% of success is built on consistency, not bursts of genius. It's the quiet repetition, the invisible discipline, the days you keep going when your body says stop. The Phantom Sentinel represents that discipline. He fights not against enemies of flesh, but against weakness, distraction, and the seductive pull of comfort. Scientists at Harvard once observed that the brain's ability to focus improves by up to 40% when a person spends just 15 minutes a day in silence. Silence, they found, reorganizes the mind. It repairs cognitive pathways damaged by overstimulation. The sentinel lives in that silence. He trains there. He draws strength from the absence of noise because in that void the truth of effort can finally be heard. People imagine strength as loud, crowds cheering, medals clinking, slogans shouted. But real power whispers. Real focus hides behind calm eyes and steady breathing. When chaos erupts, the sentinel moves slower, steadier. He knows that panic wastes energy. Every great athlete, every special forces operator, every master craftsman learns this. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's the law of controlled excellence. Data from the U.S. Navy SEAL Training Archives shows that candidates who maintained a calm heart rate during stress tests were 3 times more likely to complete training than those who let adrenaline rule them. The sentinel would nod quietly at that. He knows the heart is a compass. It points truest when it beats steady. Somewhere along the endless war of life, he learned that noise breaks focus, but silence sharpens it like a blade. There's a moment every person faces when everything seems lost. The plans fail. The applause stops. The world moves on. That's when the Phantom Sentinel steps forward within you. He whispers, "Keep walking. One more step." That's how mountains are moved. Not by loud declarations, but by silent persistence. Imagine this. In a recent survey of elite performers across industries, 92% credited their breakthroughs not to inspiration, but to consistency through fatigue. That's what the Sentinel embodies, the art of showing up when the world has already left. He doesn't need validation. His mission is his validation. His reward is not the medal, but the mastery. There's a reason ancient warriors trained alone in forests or deserts. They were seeking stillness, because stillness is a mirror. It reflects weakness, fear, ego. The Phantom Sentinel uses that reflection as a weapon. He studies his own hesitation until it breaks apart under scrutiny. You can do the same. When you sit quietly with your own doubt, you rob it of its power. Psychologists call this cognitive diffusion, seeing a thought as just a thought, not a command. That's science catching up to what warriors have known for centuries. Each scar the sentinel carries is data written in flesh. Pain is temporary. Adaptation is permanent. Neuroscience confirms that the human brain rewires itself in response to stress, a process called neuroplasticity. It means every hardship literally sculpts you. The sentinel understands this better than anyone. Every setback is a forge. Every loss, a lesson etched into his armor. He doesn't fear pain because he knows pain is proof that growth is happening. Studies from Stanford University show that people who reframe failure as feedback increase long-term resilience by over 60%. Think about that. 60% stronger just by changing the story in your head. The Sentinel changed his story long ago. Where others saw defeat, he saw instruction. Where others saw endings, he saw beginnings. He learned that silence is not emptiness, it's preparation. When the world turned chaotic, he didn't fight the noise. He simply stepped outside of it. In the chaos of today's world, where everyone speaks and few listen, the Phantom Sentinel becomes a symbol of rare power, controlled attention. The average person checks their phone over 2,000 times a day. That's 2,000 fractures in focus, but the Sentinel phone? He checks his mission once and commits until it's done. No refresh button, no dopamine hit, just endurance. And endurance, according to every evolutionary study, is the defining trait of human greatness. We survived ice ages, storms, and wars, not because we were the fastest or strongest, but because we endured longer. The Sentinel carries that ancestral code. He is the memory of all who refused to quit. Picture him now, standing on a ridge as night falls, armor scratched, breathing steady, eyes scanning the horizon. The wind howls, but he doesn't flinch. In his mind, silence speaks louder than fear. That's his secret. He has mastered his reactions. A report from Cambridge University on emotional regulation found that people who pause 3 seconds before responding under stress are 5 times more likely to make effective decisions. 5 times. Those 3 seconds are the difference between chaos and command. The Phantom Sentinel lives in those 3 seconds. You can too. Next time life strikes, pause, breathe, respond, don't react. That's the modern battlefield. Your mind. He knows that real battles aren't fought on open fields anymore. They're fought in offices, classrooms, quiet rooms lit by screens. Ice. He watches as people surrender not to bullets, but to distraction, procrastination, comparison. His war is your war. His mission to remind you that silence is not weakness, it's weaponized focus. The Sentinel never rushes. He moves like time itself, steady, unstoppable. Every sunrise he watches is a victory. Every sunset, a lesson. He's not chasing success. He's maintaining alignment. And here's what data says. Consistency for just 66 days rewires a habit loop permanently, according to the University College London. 66 days of silent discipline can rebuild a life. That's all he asks of you. The Phantom Sentinel doesn't promise quick rewards. He promises transformation through repetition. Picture this again. Dawn, the battlefield quiet. The air carries the scent of smoke and earth. His armor reflects the first ray of light. He stands alone, but not lonely. Because solitude is not the absence of company. It's the presence of mastery. And that mastery waits for you. He waits as the horizon burns with the first light. The world's still asleep beneath him. Each sunrise reminds him that endurance is a ritual, not an event. The Phantom Sentinel walks through the remains of yesterday's struggles, each footprint a lesson in patience. He knows the world forgets easily. That is why he remembers for it. Every scar, every sleepless night, every step through the fog is a chapter in the book of persistence. There are no crowds at dawn, no applause in the trenches, only the hum of wind and the quiet pulse of a heart that refuses to quit. Studies of resilience show that the human body can push 40% further than the mind believes possible. The Sentinel has lived in that extra 40% his entire life. When others collapse, he takes one more step. When pain becomes unbearable, he listens for the faint rhythm of his mission beating underneath it. That rhythm is purpose, and purpose is stronger than comfort. Purpose, science tells us, activates the same reward circuits as pleasure, but lasts longer, burns steadier. The Sentinel discovered that truth not in books, but in battle. He learned that chasing comfort is like chasing smoke. It vanishes the moment you reach for it. But chasing growth, even when it hurts, builds something solid inside. So he keeps moving. Shuaks. The terrain shifts from ash to ice, from desert to forest, and still he walks. Somewhere along the endless horizon, he begins to sense the presence of others, the broken, the lost, the silent watchers who once believed their efforts were invisible. They follow his trail, drawn not by words but by example. That is the paradox of the Phantom Sentinel. He seeks solitude, yet his silence inspires armies. Leadership, data shows, is 80% behavior and only 20% speech. People follow what they see, not what they hear. The Sentinel never asks to be followed. He simply walks with integrity and the world eventually notices. In that sense, every viewer, every listener becomes a Sentinel in training. The mission transfers like fire, quiet, powerful, contagious. And still, he wonders, what happens when even the strongest falter? The answer comes one cold night when the sky itself seems to fall. He faces a storm unlike any before. No enemies, no weapons, only exhaustion that seeps into the bones. For the first time in years, he kneels. He feels the weight of all the battles, the countless invisible wars fought alone. The mind whispers enough. That's when the lesson deepens. Endurance is not endless motion. It's the courage to pause, to breathe, to recover without quitting. Studies from the University of Pennsylvania show that deliberate rest increases long-term performance by 30%. The Sentinel learns this in the stillness between heartbeats. He rests not to surrender, but to rebuild. And when he rises again, his strength is quieter, deeper, wiser. The world won't remember this pause, but it will feel its aftermath. Because recovery, like silence, leaves no marks but changes everything. The following day, he sees his reflection in a pool of melted ice. The armor is cracked, the eyes older, but within them burns a steadier fire. He smiles, a rare, almost forgotten gesture. Growth is never glamorous. It's gritty, slow, invisible. That's what the data on mastery proves. True expertise takes roughly 10,000 hours of focused practice, 10,000 hours of silence, repetition, failure, correction. The Sentinel has walked far beyond that threshold. His mastery is not of weapon or war, but of self. When fear returns, it finds no entry. When doubt knocks, it hears only stillness. His power now is not that he fights, but that he endures without needing to prove anything. In modern life, we crave validation because the world runs on visibility. But the Sentinel knows visibility is overrated. The roots that hold the mountain upright grow in darkness. The muscles that lift a warrior are built in silence. According to recent psychological studies, people who pursue intrinsic goals, growth, contribution, self-mastery, report 40% higher life satisfaction than those chasing status or fame. That's the essence of the Sentinel's creed. Serve a mission greater than applause. Somewhere as twilight falls, he approaches the place where his story began, the battlefield long reclaimed by nature. Grass grows over rusted helmets, and the wind carries songs instead of screams. The ghosts of the past are silent now, but he feels them. He kneels again, presses his hand into the soil, and whispers gratitude. Not for victory, but for endurance. He understands that endings are illusions. What ends in one age begins in another. The data of human achievement tells the same story. Civilizations rise and fall, yet progress continues because someone always keeps watch. The Sentinel is that continuity. As night settles, he lifts his gaze to the stars. They shine like the eyes of countless souls who carried the torch before him. He realizes he was never truly alone. Every act of quiet courage, every unseen effort, every small disciplined decision adds light to that sky. That is the constellation of silent strength. He smiles once more, the kind of smile that holds lifetimes. In that moment, his figure begins to fade into the mist, not in defeat, but in fulfillment. The Sentinel doesn't die. He dissolves into legacy. Somewhere, a young person wakes before dawn, deciding to try again after failure. Somewhere, a worker finishes one more task with pride. Somewhere, a student studies in silence while the world sleeps. In each of them, a spark ignites the continuation of his watch. That is where the story ends and begins again in the endless relay of quiet determination. The world may never know his name, but it lives by his example. Because strength, true strength, does not shout. It simply endures, it breathes, it continues. And as long as someone somewhere chooses focus over distraction, growth over comfort, discipline over doubt, the phantom sentinel walks beside them still, invisible yet invincible, the eternal guardian of silent strength.